this video, and in today's video, I'll be doing a 2024 election prediction between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. I am I'm labeling the states, or the safe states. There we go. And, alright. So, for Harris's likely states, I'm going to give her New Mexico, Virginia, New Hampshire, Maine, and Nebraska second. Whereas with Trump, I'm going to give him Nebraska's first, Kansas, Iowa, Ohio, South Carolina, Alaska, and Maine second. In New Mexico, I think that Harris probably does slightly better with Hispanic Latino voters, but worse with oil workers. Virginia, I think that Harris is well enough with black voters and does well enough in the D.C. suburbs. New Hampshire, I think that she does well enough with white rural college educated voters. Maine, I think she does well enough with white rural college educated voters. Though, mind you, I do think these will probably shift to the right. Realistically speaking, Trump is a relatively strong candidate for white rural college educated voters, and Harris, I would say, is actually pretty weak. I don't think that she's weaker than Biden to the point where it would shift, or at least New Hampshire would shift 2.5% to the right, but it is definitely something to keep in mind. New Hampshire would probably be on the line between lean and likely. Nebraska second. Harris would do better in the suburbs. Nebraska's first. Trump, the suburbs will just continue to shift away from him. Kansas, the suburbs will continue to shift away from him. South Carolina, Harris is going to do well enough with black voters, so to be fair, Trump will also do pretty well with white rural voters. Iowa, I think that Trump does well enough with Obama's Trump voters and does well enough with white rural voters. Ohio, Trump does very well with the white working class, very well with white rural voters. Harris is decent with black voters and decent with suburbanites. But she does much worse with the white working class, and it splits more heavily. I think that Trump does better with the white working class against Harris. For Harris's lean states, for Trump also Alaska. I think we're going to see more and more Native American voters turning out and shifting it to the left. I think that Harris is pretty weak with oil workers, which will probably hurt her. But it'll probably still be likely. For Harris's lean state, she gets Nevada. I think that Nevada at this point should be considered lean in almost every scenario. I think that people labeling it tilt or lean it's relatively unrealistic. Yes, there are some scenarios in which it would be tilt or lean, but I don't necessarily know that it always would be. Minnesota. Okay, those may be the only states in my prediction that are lean. Nevada, I think that Trump does better with white rural voters. Harris probably does better with Hispanic Latino voters. It might shift to the right, but I think it's still probably lean. Minnesota, I think that Harris does worse in Minneapolis. I don't see her being as strong for white liberal voters, but I do see her doing well enough in the suburbs. I do see her doing decent in the suburbs. What Trump does very well with, I see Trump doing very well with white rural voters and doing very well with the white working class. For Trump's lean states, he gets Texas, Florida, North Carolina's on the line. So in Texas, I think that it's a very, very high lean. I think he does very well with white rural voters, but I think Harris is probably slightly better with Hispanic Latino voters than the suburbs. Shift enough to the left that it goes lean, but this could easily be likely. Florida, I think that Trump does very well with Hispanic Latino voters, and I don't see Harris doing well enough with older white voters in Florida. Even though she might do better in the suburbs, I think that actually shifted to the right in 2020, which may be a bad sign for the Democrats in Florida. North Carolina, although to be fair, we did see shifts in Pinellas County, Seminole County, Duval, which seemed favorable for Democrats. North Carolina, I think that Harris does better with black voters, but Trump does better with the white working class and does better with white rural voters. The Harris does do better in the suburbs. I think it's pretty much probably going to be relatively even. I do think it'll shift to the left. I don't know that it'll shift heavily enough to the point where it does go tilt. For the tilt states, let's go get started in Arizona. I'm going to give that to Trump tilt. I think that Harris isn't strong enough for traditionally conservative suburbanites. If Biden carried it by such a small margin, I think that Harris, who is probably worse for traditionally conservative suburbanites in Arizona, loses it narrowly, although I could see her winning it. In Georgia, I'm going to give this to Harris, not Trump, Harris. Tilt, I think that she does better with black voters in Atlanta and does better in diversifying suburbs. So Trump does better with white rural voters, and I don't see her. I think there's a fairly solid chance that she's not as strong for rural black voters. For the Rust Belt, starting off over here, Wisconsin, I'm going to give to Trump too. I think he's going to do very well with white rural voters. I think he's going to do much better with the white working class. Yes, Harris will do better in the suburbs and turn out her base more heavily. I think she's going to do better with black voters. I think that Trump, though, would realistically probably, I think there's a fairly good chance that he turns out his base more heavily as well and does better with the white working class. Michigan, I'm going to give nearly to Harris. I think she does well enough with black voters. And I think she does well enough with suburbanites in a state like Michigan, which typically I would think would vote to the left of Pennsylvania. Well, yes, of Pennsylvania, but of Wisconsin. The final state, the final state in this, obviously, it's not the final state. I don't think. I don't think Pennsylvania is going to be the last state in existence. I mean, like you tell me, but anyways, Pennsylvania. I think this one's definitely a toss-up. It could really go either way. I'm gonna give it to Trump. I think that he does. I think that his gains with the white working class will put him over the edge. But I do think this is a toss-up. I think it's very similar reasoning to Wisconsin. I think it's incredibly narrow. Although I do see Trump, I think in Wisconsin the rurals definitely are probably not maxed out for the GOP. Where I would say in Pennsylvania, at least in terms of margin of victory, they probably are. In terms of turnout, I don't necessarily know. Or not say maxed out. Obviously, they could say like 100% of the vote, but there's little realistic room for them to improve. But I do think that Trump probably does better with the white working class. And nearly carries us, though this could easily go either way. I could see it voting easily for Harris. It is definitely a hard state to call in this, but yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like below. Stay tuned for my next video. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Please comment your suggestions on below, and I hope to see you all in my next video. Bye.